Greetings, everyone in the world who's tuned in and watching today. My name is Nancy Rebecca with Intuitive Mind, and today I'm going to be talking about what is the difference between an earthbound spirit and a ghost. So, the thing about ghosts and earthbound spirits is they share something in common, and that is that they exist on this kind of earthly plane in this earthly dimension. But beyond that, there are some differences. So I've been working as a psychic for 25 years, and I've been working with people as a nurse and the health of their energy field. But there's certainly, as a clairvoyant, I'm able to see into the spirit world at the same time that I can see the human world. And in that, I end up seeing a lot of earthbound spirits and a lot of ghosts. I've also been called upon to do a lot of house healings in my career, and in that there's usually many ghosts that present themselves. So let me just kind of tell you some of the similarities and some of the differences so that hopefully you'll have a greater level of awareness, wisdom, knowledge, understanding that helps maybe build up a little bit more compassion rather than fear when it comes to working with the spirit world of the earthbound spirits. So one of the differences is that an earthbound spirit usually is here for a reason, and they know that they're here for a reason. They know most of the time an earthbound spirit knows that it's here and knows why it's here. So it's on a mission, and it's not going to cross over to the other side until it's able to kind of accomplish that mission. So for example, if it's a mother who has died young and has young children, it is her mission to, even though she crosses over to the other side as spirit, it's often that strong motherly bond will cause a mother's spirit to stay close by for the children. Now, is she going to remain near the children all the way through their growing up, through middle school, through high school, through college? Not likely. Most of the time, what I have noticed is that a motherly earthbound spirit will remain until she knows that her children are in good hands. So definitely if there is the father that is in still caring for the children, you know that the children are safe, but often the mother's going to remain around to help the father kind of build his confidence as a parent, and then eventually, usually the mother will help to find a mate, a good stepmother for her children. And so she'll be behind the scenes kind of doing her magic to help her husband, the father of the children, find a new relationship that will be able to care for the children. So once those things are put into place, usually the mother will stay around for a little while longer, and then once she's ready, it's almost like, you know, she rings the bell in the heavenly world and said, okay, now I can comfortably cross over. And it's the same with a father. If a father has to leave life early, leave his children early, it's the same exact thing. He will remain earthbound until he knows that his wife, the mother of his children, is a little more settled, doing a little bit better, that the kids are doing well, and then may even stay around long enough to help the mother find another relationship that is going to help support and raise the children in the way that he knows he feels comfortable with, and then he will cross over. So that's what I've noticed with an earthbound spirit. Another thing about an earthbound spirit, they have a lot of soul still connected with them. Their spiritual essence is still extremely strong. And when a spirit's essence is still strongly present in their spiritual energy field, they're going to have a lot of color to them. So when you see them, you may actually be able to say, I saw this spirit, she was wearing a red dress, or I saw this man who was wearing a suit or maybe a plaid shirt. So you'll really be able to describe the clothing because they have a lot of strong essence to them. I remember there was this man who I had known, and he had suddenly died from a freak accident, construction accident, where he hit his head and probably died within a few hours of that accident. Because he was a contractor that built many large buildings, he had quite a few construction projects going on. He came through often through his wife. It took him almost 2 years before he was willing to cross over. And in that 2 years, he made sure that there were other construction companies that could finish the jobs, that he still had that kind of sense of honor, that sense of responsibility to the people that he had made contracts with here on the earth. And so he wanted to make sure that those contracts were fulfilled. His final choice that he made was that his wife was quite sad and quite lonely, and she most certainly wasn't ready for a new relationship right away. But then at a certain point, he was very involved and finding a new mate for her, someone that would really love her and care for her. And then once she was able to get married, he attended the wedding, and then it's almost like rings that bell and said, all right, my job here on this earth is complete. I'm ready to cross over. So earthbound spirits, a lot of times you might notice them, you might sense them around really strongly, but they are going to be around those places that were very familiar to them. They'll be around family members that they're familiar with, but they're not just going to kind of randomly wander around, and they most certainly are not interested in scaring you or frightening you. And often they're not even very interested in communicating with you, except what I will say is sometimes I will have spirits come up to me and say, can you please let my wife know that I'm around, or let my son know that his father's around. So once in a while they'll let me know that, but there isn't usually a long conversation. So earthbound spirits, yes, they could cross over right away, but they will often have those conversations with the spirit world, with the angelic world. They have guides and angels around them, and they will negotiate a period of time to remain on the earth. Now, once they choose to cross over, can they come back and visit? Absolutely. And usually they'll come back to visit with a highly skilled medium who has the capacity to really raise the vibration and the frequency so that the higher vibe is more comfortable for the spirit to come into. So that's why you really want to work with a skilled medium to be able to do that. But then immediately they'll want to go back. The longer a spirit that has been earthbound and then crosses over, the longer the spirit has been gone. So sometimes when I'm doing a mediumship reading, I'll ask the person, wow, has this person been gone a long time? Oh yeah, he's been gone about 70 years now. I never knew him in this lifetime. And it's like, oh, I definitely can tell, because the longer they are on the other side, the more they're going to they'll come back. I will know it's a grandfather or a great-grandfather or a grandmother, but they will be almost pure light. They are no longer attached to their earthly form. It's almost harder for them to show their form of what they were, what they looked like even 70 years ago. So anyway, that's kind of interesting about earthbound spirits. Again, they're going to have a lot of essence. They usually have a mission. They usually have a purpose here on earth, and they usually are strongly connected to that purpose, and they can't really be bothered with scaring you or causing you to be frightened or unsettled. A ghost, though, is an essence where they've lost their essence. And often they may have lost their essence when they were here on the earthly plane. You might see some color in them. You may get a sense of that definitely you can get a sense if it's a man or a woman, but they will tend to be more gray. And you will, as a clairvoyant, I'm able to see through them. It's more of like a fog. There'll be kind of this shape of the ghost. that is kind of wandering, kind of lost, kind of isolated, not really connected to anything. Now, they may definitely remain connected to a home, but if they've been around for several hundred years, of course, that home may be long gone. And so they'll just kind of wander around the neighborhood that they're familiar with. They can also remain attached to buildings because usually by the time you see a ghost, many of their earthly kind of family members are gone. They may have been an elderly person who had no family, and so they had no earthly attachments, but they either may not feel worthy of crossing over, they may have self-loathing, they may have self-hatred, they may feel like they're not going to go to heaven, that the only place that they might go is to hell, and they feel very frightened about that. And so they're very, very lost. Do they want to scare you? No. Most of the time, they don't want to scare you. Most of the time, they know that they scare you. So often when I see a ghost, the ghost will kind of be hiding behind a post, behind a wall, in another room. As soon as I see it, the ghost will kind of disappear. It will hide. Mostly not because it's afraid of me, but it's kind of, its self-esteem is kind of low. It doesn't feel worthy of me even looking at them. And they most certainly don't want to frighten me. So often they will kind of hide. So then I have to go looking for them and keep calling to them and ask them if they would be willing to communicate with me. So, so those spirits, so let's say, for example, it could be a person who's been homeless for most of their life, maybe 50 years in their life, that they had been disconnected from their families long ago, that they had been either a drug addict or an alcoholic. I'm just kind of giving you a scenario of what the case might be. Again, they're used to no one looking at them. If they're on the street kind of laying there on a blanket, most people are going to walk by and not notice them and ignore them. So when they pass over, they're going to take those feelings with them, that unworthiness, that loneliness, that isolation, not wanting to be seen, not wanting to offend anyone, that kind of low self-esteem. So, and they will have already, their spirit will probably, most of the time when they were living on earth, will already have kind of disassociated. So by the time they cross over, they don't have a really strong sense of spirit about them. And they will tend to kind of wander around. When I bought this house that I'm in, it's 130 years old. And the woman who lived here, she lived here for 87 years. Can you imagine? 87 years. She never got married and she never had her own children. She was the maid. She was the caregiver for the couple that lived here. So I like to kind of give you this example because when I moved in, this house was considered abandoned. She had been a hoarder in her later years, but it was also kind of considered not livable. I can't remember what the word is for that. But I remember the insurance company saying, you better get these 5 things in place or we are not going to insure whatever project you have going on. I will tell you, the house was full of spirits and I couldn't understand why there were so many spirits. So this particular woman, who lived here, she was strongly present and she was full of color and she was full of life. She lived here for 87 years. So she was strongly attached not only to this house, but every single item in this house. Now, the previous owner, the man, had died in the 60s, in the 1960s, and he left her the entire house and all of its contents. He only would appear as an earthbound spirit. He was no longer earthbound. He had crossed over. But once in a while, he would pop in and to tell us that we were doing a mighty fine job restoring the house. He often, I would see him with a cigar. We found pictures later with him with a cigar. We would often associate with him with cigar smoke in the house. So we would see him often. for Irene, which was her name, who lived here the longest, she would often open and close doors and check on us because this had been a boarding house during World War II. But she was also not only lived in isolation and lived with loneliness because she had outlived all of her family, she was also extremely spiritual, and she was very Christian. So she loved to talk to Jesus and Mary. We have her diaries, so we know this. She loved to talk to angels. And she also was curious about the spiritual realm. So in fact, the spiritual world was much more her friends than the human world. The neighbor tells us, oh, sorry, I have my dog. My dog is laying next to me and just knocked the tripod. So sorry for that little disruption, but she's definitely relaxed into a deeper state. So the neighbor said it took her 8 years of knocking on the door, leaving food outside the door before Irene felt comfortable enough to let her in. So just to let you know, she much preferred the spirit world than the physical world. So when she passed and we ended up buying this house, it was full of spirits. And I would say these were not earthbound spirits. They didn't have a mission. They were more of the ghostly realm, meaning that they had a gray patina around them. You could see through them. They traveled en masse. So I would say there was easily 1,000 of these kind of ghostly type presence in our home. It took us quite a few months to be able to get most of them to cross over because she had befriended them so much they just thought they would get to stay here. And then there were a few that remained in the attic, and I would say even 6 years later there's still a few that remain in the attic area. And sometimes people will take a photograph and they will see the spirits kind of looking out the windows, but they don't bother us and they kind of stay out of our way. But they wander. Ghosts will wander kind of lost. And often, even if the angels want to come and offer to have them cross over, often they don't feel worthy of the light. This is what I want you to understand. They don't feel worthy of the light. We had a friend once that he had been an alcoholic. He was struggling. He was on the street. We found him. We offered to have him come into our home to take a shower, to feed him a hot meal. And he couldn't even step into our kitchen. He said, "Open the basement door. I'm only worthy of remaining in the basement. Just give me a sleeping bag. I'll sleep on your basement floor." He didn't feel worthy to even sleep in one of our guest rooms. So this is what it's like for ghosts. They often won't go to the light because they don't feel worthy of the light. Even if an angel, or I've called in Jesus and asked Jesus to talk to them, it can take some pretty, oh shoot, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. I'm going to keep this video going because I don't know how to edit it. Oh my goodness. Okay, so in talking about that, so often with Jesus even, it will take hours of negotiation, no matter how much the presence of Jesus wants to express to them that they are loved, that they don't have to worry about being forgiven, that they are part of the divine. It can still require a lot of negotiation before they are willing to cross over. I have a friend who does this a lot. She used to have an office space, so she would go to her office, she would close the door, she had a comfortable chair, she had a desk, and at that time then she would prepare herself and she would let the spirit world know that she was ready to be of service. When she was ready to be of service, the angelic realm would bring a spirit to her or would help kind of illuminate a ghost that was caught on the earth that couldn't find their way to cross over. And so she would enter into that negotiation. She would call in guides and angels to assist, and then she would help that spirit to cross over to the other side. When there are ghosts and spirits and even earthbound spirits on this earthly plane, if they don't have a purpose or a mission, they do wander around very confused. And this can add to the confusion state on the earth for all of us. We can feel very disoriented. So it is of great value to be able to help and assist these spirits to cross over to the other side. And it doesn't require a lot of skill and ability. It just requires, a compassionate heart and your desire to want to kind of help be in service to that spirit, to that soul. And so you can either you can call upon the light from the heavenly realm. You can bring the light down nearby where that spirit is. Often, if they see that light, it's such a magnetic, beautiful light that it will draw them towards that light. Other times you can call in the angelic realm, ascended masters like Jesus or Mary or Buddha or another ascended master that you might like to work with to be able to communicate with this person. You might want to offer a healing or just offer love. A lot of times that will help uplift their own self-esteem, the ghost self-esteem, so they feel worthy of crossing over. Because we have a lot of teachings on this earth that are pretty black and white and pretty literal. It's like, if you do this, you're going to go to heaven, and if you do this, you're going to go to hell. And my experience is just not like that. In my experience, the way the spiritual realm really looks in terms of what someone does, it looks in terms of learning lessons. Did they learn the lessons that they came here to learn? If they had some hard lessons, were they able to grow in those lessons? And if they weren't able to grow in those lessons, are they willing to have another opportunity to grow? So a lot of those things are taken into consideration. So if you've had a loved one that has struggled, if you have a loved one that you questioned, did they make it to heaven? Are they going to make it to heaven? Just notice, just know that in my experience, 99% of the time, they are able to go with the same angelic realm as someone who's been honorable and done good deeds all of their life as well. The same opportunities are available to them. So in this video, what I'm talking about is, what is the difference between an earthbound spirit and a ghost? Again, often the earthbound spirit is here for a short period of time. They have a mission to accomplish, and they stay here until they accomplish that mission. They are always in touch with the the heavenly realm. And when they're ready to go, they're very clear that they're ready to go, ready to cross over. A ghost is usually someone who's lonely, who's isolated, who usually is not connected to people or has been forgotten. And if they've been forgotten by their own family or prayers haven't been said for them, they could be around for hundreds of years and they've completely disconnected and kind of been lost from their loved ones who crossed over to the other side. I have a few more stories that I've shared about this in my blog. So if you go to intuitivemind.org, on Thursdays is when I release my blog for the week. I've told a few more stories there. You are very welcome to also come to my Facebook page, intuitivemind.org Intuitive Mind business page on Facebook. I will be talking again about the difference between ghosts and earthbound spirits at 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on Facebook. So I always talk about some subject every single Thursday live on Facebook under Intuitive Mind. So, so I'm hoping that I left you with a lot less fear and a lot more compassion when it comes to working with the spiritual world, whether they're the earthbound spirits or the ghost. And often the ghost will need to be negotiated with to prepare them to cross over. And then the earthbound spirits that have a mission, they've got a mission, they've got something they want to accomplish, so they're not going to be ready for you to just randomly cross them over. Either way, you want to be able to telepathically talk to them or find someone who can talk to them to assist them if they desire assistance. That's the other thing, always asking for permission. But prayers always help. All right, everyone. It's so great to see you this week on YouTube, and I look forward to talking to you next. And in my next video about how to have a relationship with your loved ones in spirit form on the other side. So if you like these topics, please hit the subscribe button and the bell so you get the notification when that next video is released. All right, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.